What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Sophisticated Man podcast. As you can see, I have another special guest here today with me, Mr. Austin. What's up, man?
Going on, brother? It is great to be here, man. Give participate, gentleman and scholar, sophisticated man, a good friend, man. So really happy to be here, bro.
Yeah, man. Happy to have you on. And like you said, we actually know each other. We met, I want to say back in 2019, I think.
I believe so. Yeah, I think it probably should have came prepared with the actual date since it was at an event
Yeah.
that we looked at. But I definitely think it was late 2019,
hmm
mid to late 2019 for sure. Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah, it was around that time. It was definitely before the pandemic and all that stuff happened.
100%. Yeah,
So yeah, man, that kind of that's funny because so for the people that maybe don't know, me and Austin had a prior relationship. We knew each other. We even did some work together. I worked in his program, and I'll kind of have him have the floor a little bit, kind of plug yourself, let people know exactly what it is that you do, how you got into it, and where people can find you.
yeah, man. I'll try to condense that a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'll go all the way back to how it actually happened. So I was working in a corporate sales job. I was selling jewelry all over the country. And long story short, I was in a kind of a team building situation out in Phoenix for my company. And they brought in a gentleman who worked for the color code. And as he was going through his presentation, it was kind of like one of those aha moments, not to bring Oprah into it, but there was an aha moment that I had listening to his presentation, and it was pretty much because of the fact that what he was teaching felt like what I had been looking for, understand things about myself, about my relationships, the people that I was close with or wanted to be close with. And at the time, I was applying it to selling, right? But as you know, everything in life is about relationships. So
Yep.
it gave me a nice framework and foundation to understand relationships. So fast forward, I left that job and I took the color code with me. I got trained in that particular protocol, but like most people in this space, I'm always trying to learn more, man. So I've read a lot of books about relationships, relationship psychology. Um, back then TikTok and Instagram were not what they are now. So there's a lot of people that do very similar things to us. So
hmm
there's a lot of good and bad information about relationships, relationship building, dating, and so forth. I have some clients that I work with that I try to help them to understand why they do the things that they do, how that affects all of their relationships, the best way to create new and better relationships. So I coach single men like yourself, couples, whether they're dating or married, folks that are post divorce or trying to get back into the dating scene through social media, dating apps, and so forth. And I just really have always been interested in helping people to explore the best parts of relationships because you really don't do anything in life that is not connected in some way to a relationship. So
hmm
find me on Instagram. My Instagram page is Relationships 101. Now it is RELA.TIONSHIPS.101. And so it's Relationships 101 on Instagram.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and if you guys want to
Like
check them
long
out,
walks on the beach as well. And
the personal.
you know, yeah, Star Wars and all types of sports, man. So I actually
Nice.
won Star Wars trivia today at work. So on the 9 to 5.
Well, the new Star Wars isn't really Star Wars. I think that's a whole other discussion we can
Yeah,
get into.
yeah. That might have to be after the podcast, but I'll
Yeah,
see you on that.
for sure. Yeah, guys. And if you guys want to check out his page, I'll leave his links down below. As always, if you guys want to explore more of his content. Um, but yeah, that's the big reason I brought Austin on the pod was his experience with relationships and relationship building and networking, connections, all these different things. And if you follow my content, I'm a big proponent of that. Um, I talk a lot about relationships as well, not just with women and with other people, but obviously your relationship to yourself. And that's kind of how I wanted to start maybe this topic off and just kind of kick things off with that central question of like, so I have this philosophy, and I'm sure you share the same thing because we've talked a lot about this stuff before. But I'm in the philosophy that like if you get your relationship with yourself kind of figured out first and foremost, like what do you like, what do you not like, what are things that motivate you, what are you interested in, that kind of naturally plays into the relationships you attract in your outer world. Like it's inner world and everything outside of you then kind of stems from that. So in your opinion, Austin, like how do you see that dynamic playing out? And what are some ways that maybe guys can start to have a better relationship with themselves?
Yeah, man, that's a fantastic question. And first and foremost, you are correct. I don't think that you can have aggressive, reciprocal, good relationships in any way, shape, or form if you don't understand who you are as a man, as a person. Um, I think there are certain ways that people go about trying to understand what is natural to them
Mm,
that aren't necessarily the right ways to do it, right? So, one of the things that I always recommend when it comes to my program is understanding what it is that motivates you from a core perspective. Not what somebody told you to be motivated by, not your behavior, but what makes you do the things that you do. So I'll give you an example because most people that are into relationship science, it's about looking at a behavior and then diagnosing the person. However, what I teach and what I try to help people understand is there's always a motive behind the behavior. So if you were driving down the highway and a car came up on your tail, they were beeping their horn, they're swerving, they're almost causing accidents, what would be your response to that vehicle? If we put that in a real world scenario, Tino's going down the highway, someone cuts you off, they're beeping, they're swerving, and they almost make you crash your car. What would be your
mm.
response?
Well, yeah, my response would be just anger. I'd be pissed. I'd be like, all right, so what the hell is going on with this guy?
Yeah, that's right. If they pull up to your bumper, you might tap the brakes a little bit, right?
Mm,
But how would you feel if you then found out that that person had a child in the back seat, that they were rushing to the hospital?
mm,
That would change your perspective, right?
certainly.
So the point is, there was a motive behind that behavior that you didn't have access to.
Mm,
So once you understand the motive, that changes the relationship between you and that other driver, right? So life and relationships is the same. When you understand what it is that motivates your own behavior, then you can look at all of your relationships, to your point, familial, romantic, work, most importantly, the relationship with yourself. And that will change the perspective of why you do things and how you affect those relationships. So when it
mm,
comes to my program, there's a test that folks will take. It's about 40 questions. And those questions will help you to appreciate what it is that motivates you. So it's not peeling away the onion, it's going to the center of the onion immediately, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, so that's how I help people in general. Um, be a bit more specific with men. I think that we are in an era where men are being told who they are,
Yep.
and I don't believe that that is healthy. There are a lot of men that don't come from a background like you or I that have strong parents and strong family and so forth. Um, many folks today do not have a faith or a religion, so they're kind of lost, right?
Hmm.
As men, we, it's that interesting phrase. We're all called human beings, right? But oftentimes we are human doings. Men do things,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Work, we exercise. We're all about activity.
Hmm.
But I think activity that is not connected to a purpose is why we have so many men that are lost.
Mm.
So um, I believe that we all have free will, and I think it's important for men to find out what their purpose actually is with
Hmm.
regard to who they are, and that makes everything else clear. It's like Bruce Lee says about taking away the things that are ineffective and the things that are not going to help you, right?
Hmm.
That takes introspection and it takes an understanding of who you are as a person. So that's what I try to help people do.
Mm. That's beautifully said, man. And I agree 100%. And again, I've said earlier, like I worked with Austin before. So these were some of the things that he helped me realize, that he helped kind of take me through the process of figuring out like what are some of my motivators, what are some of the things that I might not even be aware of, that make me feel that, that make me tick essentially. And you brought up a really interesting point about purpose, because if anybody watches my content for like a second, you know that I talk about purpose nonstop. That's all I talk about. That's basically one of the core parts of my message is men getting on their purpose, giving them that direction in life. Because that's what I think, like when a guy has that, it just naturally gives him an inclination to say, you know what, I'm going to pursue this. It's going to be maybe a business potentially. It could be something that, lights the fire in him. Because if he doesn't have that pull towards anything bigger than him, what happens? He tends to fall into pleasure. He gets into things like snacking, pornography, all that kind of stuff, all these negative things. So like purpose gives you, like you were saying, like it gives you that meaning in life. So I want to
Yeah.
ask you, because I've tried to say this multiple different ways, and there is a lot of ways you could break it down. How would you define what a purpose is in men? Like, how do you think men should look at what a purpose really is?
Another fantastic question.
I got them all day, man.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love it. Um, I think there is no greater nobility for a man than to have a family.
Mm,
To have a
yep.
family. I think, and oftentimes people will say that is not for everyone, right?
Mm,
But there's a Greek philosopher. His name is Pythagoras, and he has a quote that says, "No man is free that cannot control himself."
so true.
So to your point, without a greater purpose, men have little to no self-control.
Mm,
So why would a man want to have self-control? Well, because he needs to take care of his family. Now, for some men, that may mean taking care of their parents
right.
as they grow older, right? Um, but for most men, that would mean a wife and children. I think that is the greatest and most noble purpose that a man can have. Now, to get to that, there are a lot of steps that men have to go through, things they have to learn about themselves, about um, their duty as a man.
Hmm.
But I think that is a elevated purpose. A lot of that comes from my background in my faith. I just believe that that is what um, man is supposed to do.
Mm,
Um, Dating and relationships is a separate thing, but to be a man on his purpose means that you are bringing all of those things together so that you
hmm.
can raise a healthy family. You can raise a family, bring up a family that are contributing members of society. Because if you don't, just have a world full of degenerates, right? Which is what we see a lot
Mm.
today.
Oh
So
yeah.
without
Mm. I really resonate with that, man. Like the whole family aspect of it. I think that that's really the cornerstone of every guy's like stages in life. Like it kind of think I think it starts out like guys are very selfish. Well, actually, even before that happens, guys are like unaware. They just don't know what they want. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they are here to do.
Yeah.
Then maybe they start to figure that out. And they're like, okay, I'm all about me then. I'm going to make myself better. I'm going to make the money. I'm going to get the girls. I'm going to do everything. And they just focus on themselves. But you take it a notch up further, what is the natural next step? It's giving back. It's being
Right.
selfless, helping others, contributing. And then once you get past that point, I believe the next step is the family. So teaching the next generation, this is how you do it, man. This is how you go through life. And I'm not going to say you have all the answers, but you're teaching, you're giving, and you're essentially leading the way for the next generation to kind of learn from. So
What's interesting
yeah.
about that point that you made, just one more point, and it's something that is, as young men, we don't often think about this way.
Mm-hmm.
As you get older, you don't have a family, kids, everything starts to be taken away from
It's very true.
you. That is not an enjoyable existence,
Mm,
right? Losing friends, you're losing family members, you're moving, you're losing your connections, and you have nothing that is elevating you or keeping you at a point where you want to go on. That's why a lot of times you see the rates of self-deletion going up for men because
yeah.
they're just losing, and they don't have
Mm,
anyone, to your point, that they are leading as a man,
yeah.
right? They don't have a partner with them as a wife who is supporting them, and then you're not creating new life. So all you're seeing is life going away, right?
Mm,
So that's why I think the family is the most important and most noble purpose.
mm. That's a very, very good point because that's true. Like if we don't feel like we're contributing in any sense to a group, a community, a sense of service to someone, we don't feel like we're fully living that purpose. We don't feel like we're actually doing much. At least I don't. I'm sure you feel the same way. So I
You know
think
what it's
that's
like?
the
It's
biggest
like
thing.
it's like when you don't have that, you're like a dim light bulb, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not You're not off,
Right.
but you're not really on either, right?
Hmm.
So men are on,
Yeah.
have families that rely on them,
Yep.
right? That gives them that direction that they're moving in, and that gives them a purpose,
Hmm.
right? And even if you start a family later on in life, that is there's. I mean, ask your parents if they regret having you. And I already
Oh
know the answer.
God. No.
Come on, not a
Not a
chance.
shot. Yep.
There are very few parents that would
Hmm.
regret starting a family. So
Hmm.
um, that's what I look towards in the future. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, man. I 100% agree with you. I wanna point this out too, because I know that there's certain groups that exist online. I don't even know if you might be aware of all of them, but I'm probably not even aware of all of them. But there is a subset of men that don't really believe in like the whole aspect of like service and community and helping and building relationships, building families. The one that off the top of my head I can think of is like MGTOW, I believe, that they kind of just like do their own thing. They don't really associate with women. They kind of just keep to themselves, basically, like the lone wolf mentality. And I've
Yeah.
never really
Yeah.
resonated. Yeah, I've never really resonated with that kind of thinking. Because that could be a very lonely experience, I would assume. Like what are your thoughts on that just aspect of maybe what guys are getting taught out there?
So I am very familiar with the MGTOW community,
Mm.
not because I participate in it. And mostly it's because I fundamentally disagree
Yeah.
with their philosophy, if you will,
Hmm.
right? It actually reminds me of another philosophy that perhaps you've heard of that I think maybe has sprung from that. It's called anti-natalism. Now, these people believe
Hmm.
that life is so terrible and painful that the human race should stop procreating immediately. And I
Wow.
think that is an outgrowth
Mm,
from MGTOW, men going their
yeah.
own way. This, as you mentioned, this lone wolf, one wolf pack mentality that they have.
Mm,
Now, here's where I agree with them. If you don't understand what it is you want to do with your life, you don't understand your purpose. I'm all for monk mode,
yeah.
right?
Right.
Go
Yeah.
off and figure it out. Take a couple years.
Figure it out.
But going back to the beginning of our conversation, everything in life is about relationships.
Hmm.
We are not meant to be, meant to be a lone wolf.
Mm,
Not. So I think that their philosophy perhaps is not damaging to other people, but on a personal level, I do not believe that you can be by yourself for a significant amount of time and not suffer from psychosis. I don't know how else to say it.
hmm.
I because even these men who purport to be MGTOW, they have an internet community, so
Exactly.
they're
Yeah.
not really alone, are they?
Right. Right.
Right? So to me, I think it is unfortunate that men feel so alone and so
Mm,
disconnected
hmm.
that they have created this subset of men who have each other yet proclaim to be going their own way by themselves. So what that means to me is that just means you don't want to engage with women,
Pretty much.
and that's fine, right?
Hmm.
But I also don't believe that that is sustainable for most men because most men want to
Yep.
be women,
Right.
you know.
Mm. That's an interesting point. I didn't even think of it like that. Like, even though they claim to not want to associate with people, having an online community literally is like going against what they say. I didn't even
If
realize that, but that's true.
you were a man going your own way, you wouldn't be on the internet.
Literally at all.
Be off in the woods somewhere in your
Yeah.
cabin, right?
Hmm.
Which is like you want to do that, that's cool. Do your
Yeah.
thing. But I think that particular subset of men on the internet are angry with women.
Hmm.
I think they are perhaps a bit antisocial. Um,
Mm.
so they wanted to create a community where they could just go and talk about their problem. That's fine. If that works for them and they can remain uh, healthy from a psychological standpoint, that's fine. But I don't, um, I do not agree with that philosophy for anyone, right?
Hmm. Yeah, because I think after a while, because like you said, I do agree there's a point in a man's life where he does maybe need to isolate intentionally. Like, hey, get your stuff together, figure out who you are, figure out what you want to do, get your purpose. Like you said, monk mode. I think it's vital for every guy to at least have some kind of period where he's doing that. But the goal isn't to stay in monk mode. Like, you want to reinsert yourself into society, into
Right.
culture, into, your family and your friends. You don't want to stay in that forever. Um, I guess
And
what do
I
you
appreciate that it is difficult
Yeah,
some men to find a community.
sure.
So maybe so devil's advocate would be they found it with McCown,
Yeah,
right?
it's a fair point. I think too it comes back to knowing because it's like the saying goes, right? Like, what hurt people. So like feeling like they're not included in something or feeling maybe, I don't know, like an outcast, you get in a community with other people who feel the same way. Well, that just validates your experience and you're going to feel in a roundabout way, you're going to feel like you have a sense of community, even though that's not what you want. It's what you search for, I think, instinctually.
So I feel like right now on this podcast we have just created a new community to make tout men going their own way together.
Legit.
You're welcome, guys. We got you.
Seriously, there's a little subdivision of MGTOW. It's
That's right.
it's it's about inclusion. It's not about exclusion.
Got it. Great question. Yeah.
That's hilarious. But it's true. Like, I think I'm wondering too what your timeline is for some guys, because I know that there's a lot of dudes that promote monk mode, and I definitely do too. I think that's important, but like I said, it's not like it's more of a season. You go through a season of monk mode. You don't stay there for the whole year or like however long it may be. What is your timeline, do you think, for a guy to healthily be in monk mode and be in isolation or just kind of do his own thing and then to maybe come back to the world?
So I don't really think that there is a timeline.
Mm,
The comparison that I could give would be if someone is not feeling themselves and they go to the doctor and they get a test, and that test says you have stage 3 cancer, stage 1 cancer, stage 4. Well, the remedy for that is dependent upon how sick they are.
mm,
So if a man is extremely far off of what he wants to do with his life, with his purpose, he may need the monk mode for a bit longer. But this
hmm
goes back to part of being a man is setting goals.
Yep.
And goals without a timeline is a dream.
Mm,
So maybe you say, I want to have this much money in the bank. I want to move here. I want to lose this much weight. However long it takes you to get to that, where you're feeling like yourself, you
hmm
will.
Yep.
That's how long it's right. Um, just saying I'm going to go monk mode, disappearing off the face of the earth, with no end date in mind, is just wishful thinking. Never works. So you
Mm,
have to set a goal while you're in monk mode. Why are you going in there in the first place? Number one.
hmm
And then number two, what is the goal you have to get to end monk mode and come
mm,
back to the world, right?
hmm
And monk mode is different for everyone. For some
Right.
guys, I'm not going to drink for this amount of time. I'm not going out on the weekends for this amount of time. I'm
hmm
starting my side hustle and I'm going hard for 6 months and nobody's going to see me, right? But you have to make that determination before you begin. A monk mode
mm,
for some guys could be a month, could be a year,
yeah.
right?
hmm
I have a friend who absolutely hunted his 20s.
Wow. Whole decade.
Guess what? He's now 35. He's a multimillionaire.
Huh.
And, I give myself a little plug. I helped him meet the woman of his dreams he's now dating.
Mm,
Right?
wow.
So does that mean you have to monk mode for a decade? Not necessarily. But he knew what he wanted and he made that determination, stuck to his guns, and everything played out the way that it was supposed to. So
Mm,
I think it depends on that individual man's goal.
mm.
For, right?
Yeah. That's a very, very good point. It's like you want to go into monk mode with a plan and like
Yes.
have some kind of outcome that you're looking for, a result you're trying to achieve. Because I think some guys hear monk mode and they're like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna do it, but they have no idea like what they're even really getting into, or they don't have a focus for monk mode. It's just like, yep, I'm just gonna be a shut in and
And you know what happens?
order food in all day night.
That's right. And what always happens is they tell everybody online, I'm monk mode,
Yeah.
guys, and whatever. And then they come back 3 months later and nothing's changed. So what
Nothing.
was the point,
Yep.
right? There has to be a goal in mind.
hmm I agree. And that's true for a lot of things too. Like even the things with like no fap and the whole semen retention movements and all this stuff. That's the same way. Like you need a goal. Like you shouldn't just be like, all right, I'm gonna just try it out and count my days and start checking off boxes. I mean, you might last a little bit, but you're eventually gonna relapse and be like, well, why did I start in the first place? I don't even
Yeah.
know the reason of me doing this. So
To your point from
100%.
earlier, for a man to be able to lead or teach the next generation, if you will,
hmm
you have to say, well, I went monk mode for this amount of time, and these were the results.
hmm
You can't just talk about it. You got to be about it, right?
Right.
So you
Right.
can't be about it if you have a goal that you're going to be willing to punt things away to achieve,
hmm
right? Once you achieve it, then you can go teach other people how you did it that are looking to do the same thing,
Yep.
which is what men should be doing, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I 1000% agree. And I think it comes into because you hear the word value being thrown out so many times with content. All these creators talk about it and coaches talk about it. We all talk about it, but it's like, what does that mean? Like, what is value? And I actually had a discussion with this with a previous guest about value. And to me, that is like the cornerstone of a guy's like you want to say his like catalyst to growth or his his juice that he can give to society is values usefulness in my opinion, like your ability to be of service or to be that guy that other people can learn from, rely on, be a shoulder to cry on, or whatever that ends up being. And I don't think you create value, the usefulness or utility as a man until you like figure yourself out first. So until you go through some type of phase like monk mode, like no fap, like whatever, that's how you create value, is finding it in yourself and then being like, well, what am I actually good at? Like I helped myself quit porn in 6 months. Like maybe I can help guys do that too. So I think that's when you figure that out, is when you go through that kind of experience.
To that point, the program that I teach, as you well know, um, every person that takes it is assigned a specific color, which is called the color code. Each color represents what it is that motivates that person.
Mm-hmm.
As an example, if a person comes back from the test, they are a red. That is somebody who is motivated by power, which means to get things done. So if
Mm-hmm.
that's you find out that's who you are as a person, what is your value? Helping people, companies, family members to get things done, to
Mm-hmm.
push things forward, go from A to B. That's how you're useful, right?
Mm-hmm.
I and many of my clients, for whatever reason, happen to be blues. Blues are motivated by intimacy, meaning into me, you see. So you are the person that has high levels of emotional intelligence. You're the person that can bring people together. You value deep conversation like this.
Mm-hmm.
You value deep relationships. So you help other people and yourself to build relationships with community and family and friends, because that's who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
You, your test came back. You're white. You're motivated by peace, right?
Yeah.
That is inner peace, which is something you brought up early on in this discussion,
Mm-hmm.
right? So as long as you have your inner peace, doesn't matter what's going on around you, it's going to be peaceful. So for you, it's bringing people into your peace that are typically chaotic without allowing them to mess up your peace. You're the type of person where you could be the moderator for chaos, right? That's who you are.
Yeah, man.
That's
Yeah, for
and
real.
then and the fourth color is yellow. Somebody who comes back from their test as a yellow, they're motivated by fun. They're motivated by social events, getting people together, the club promoter, the party planner, or just the person in their friend group that when things are at their worst, they know how to find that silver lining. So that's what that person should be motivated by doing. And
Mm,
all of those things that motivate every single decision that they make then allows them to create the best relationships within that motivation to
hmm.
affect others, right?
Yeah.
And that's the goal of what I teach people to do, to understand their motive and say, okay, this is my superpower, if you will. So how can I use that in my life?
Mm. That's so real. And I mean, I'll attest to that because the one that I took, being white, of my inner peace, my inner harmony. I mean, that could not be more accurate. And like I
Yeah,
feel like that's kind of what I do on a daily basis. I mean, with clients and with like
right.
the content that I make and everything like that, it's all centered around finding your peace and finding your balance, even though I don't say that. But
Yeah.
that's essentially my intention, is helping guys feel like, they're confident in themselves. They feel good about who they are and they have their life section. Like structure for me is my peace. Like if I don't have that, it's chaos. And I think that's one of the things that I help guys with.
Absolutely, absolute worst thing that could ever happen to you is being
Yeah.
around people, places, and things that are chaotic. And the other thing that I think you should absolutely feel wonderful about
Mm-hmm.
is your best quality as a white is that you are non-judgmental. So people can come
Yeah.
to you and say anything to you,
Hmm.
and then you're not judging them. You're just a soundboard,
Right.
and then come back with very logical, uh, peaceful advice.
Hmm.
And that's what people are looking for that, especially men. You know?
Oh yeah. That's facts, man. I mean, there's so many people that, dude, I don't know what I do, but they word vomit their whole lives and tell me every little detail about themselves. And I'm just like, all right, let me hear you. Like I'm here to listen. And honestly, I think that makes a good coach. And yeah, man, that's another
Whites,
piece of the
whites are
equation.
the whites are the best listeners in the color code by
Yeah.
far, out of the closest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Blues, us blues, we try to act like we're as good as y'all at that, but we're not. We'll be honest.
I mean, I'm part blue too, so I feel the
Yeah,
pain. I feel
yeah,
that.
absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, man, I love that we're talking about this because there is such a power to knowing yourself and having that awareness and giving yourself the ability to just kind of be yourself, real as corny as that is to say, like just be yourself, but like I mean like literally embodying that and actually like not feeling bad about it, not being sorry, not feeling like you have to step on toes. I think that's a piece I believe that a lot of men don't talk about when it comes to specifically like with women, like the relationships they have with women. Like, oh, I don't want to upset her. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to be this guy. But at least in my opinion, I think you're better off finding, and I'd love to hear your take on this, but because now we're talking about romantic relationships, like finding women that already align with you and what you're trying to do in life. Like, hey, I'm a coach, I'm trying to build a business. I need a girl that can support that. I need a girl that knows how to talk to me, how to like help nurture me and whatnot. So what is your thoughts on guys finding the right kind of romantic relationships to kind of bring into their life? I know that's a
Ooh,
loaded question.
that is that's a big one. That's a very difficult one.
Mm,
Um, I will say that first and foremost, um, I think social media has ruined relationships in our
facts.
modern time,
Hmm.
and that is actually a very close second to pornography.
Mm,
So I believe that men need to stop both of those if they can. Social media is probably going to be a little bit more difficult.
right.
We're visual creatures. Men are visual creatures. So you're scrolling all day and you're
Hmm.
seeing Instagram models, these beautiful girls, and so forth. That gives you a skewed perception of what a good woman is.
Hmm.
Pretty is not a pass or bad behavior.
Never is.
So for men that are dating, I think one of the most important things to realize is that no is a complete sentence, right? So if there is something that you do not want the girl or woman that you are in a relationship with to be doing, say no. If she does not, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. If she does not want to comply, then you say goodbye. That's not being controlling,
Right.
being in control.
Mm.
Because if you're a man on your purpose and you're coming into the best season of your life, nothing and no one should be derailing you from that.
Yeah.
Not a family member, not a friend, not a 9 to 5, and certainly not a girlfriend. So I think for men, it's very important to notice what their girl does when you disagree.
Mm.
That's very important
Hmm.
because a disagreeable dating situation is torture. We
Yeah.
both have friends that are in those situations right now.
Hmm.
However, I do believe that it is on the man to establish that relationship.
Always.
You're supposed to be the leader of the relationship. If you're not getting the type of relationship that you want with the person you're involved with, it's your fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Women naturally fall underneath the the framework that you have created, right?
Right. Right.
Start dating a girl, all of a sudden she done seen all the Star Wars movies, right? All of a sudden she loves Prince.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about myself. All of a sudden she likes LeBron, right? But that is because your framework is such
Mm-hmm.
that she comes into your world, and then that allows her to just be comfortable and be feminine and sit back and watch you do what you do,
Mm-hmm.
support you. She'll have her own things going on, right? But most men get into situations where they're in a relationship with a woman who doesn't even like them that much. They're just
Yeah.
kind of tolerating the man
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't engender any of those feelings of this is my man,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one of the philosophies that I try to teach men is she there's some universal languages, right? One of those universal languages is disinterest. So
Oh
the
yeah.
moment that you see disinterest, why are you in a relationship? Why are you talking
Mm-hmm.
to somebody? Why? If
Mm-hmm.
she's disinterested, it's because she is. So move on to someone who is interested in you. And when
Mm-hmm.
you have a girl who really loves you, who really admires you, respects you, she wants to be around you all the time. She's not going to cause you any issues. She's not going to argue with you. You are going to provide for her what she needs, and in turn, she will do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Problem with dating today is that men oftentimes provide value to women who don't even like them
Yeah.
and
Yep.
don't reciprocate. So it's like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
It's an unequal exchange in value, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you can think back to some women in your life who showed disinterest, and you kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and you broke your own heart, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think every man goes through that. So I
Right.
try to keep men to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you see disinterest, or if you see in your relationship that it's not 80% good, I love the 80-20 rule, man. If you're not 80% happy, why are you in a relationship? It makes no
Mm-hmm.
sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my overarching recommendation, man. Is find a counterpart who loves you, admires you, respects you, and shows it. And if she doesn't, you shouldn't be in a relationship. You
That's
know?
facts, man. That's facts. I know that was like a tough question to kind of get everything in there, but you
Yeah, I don't know if I
answered
did
it
it. I
beautifully.
tried.
No, you did it well, man. I agree. Like, that's kind of where simping comes into play. Like, guys, they're just over invested in girls that aren't invested in them at all. And like that's where the term simp comes from. Is like you're putting in all this effort and she's not, or you're giving her all these resources and she doesn't even like you. Like she's not even like I actually have a quick story. So I know this girl
Yeah.
who I'm not gonna say any names, obviously, but this girl and this well, we'll say this guy was talking, we'll say talking, and he took her trips to like New York, Chicago, all these extravagant places. She never even considered him her boyfriend. They never kissed. I've never seen them kiss. I've never seen them hold hands, hug, nothing. And he would just continually just give her all this stuff. And she obviously she's taking it because I mean you're giving free dinners, free trips, all this stuff. I mean, who would turn that down? And I think a lot of that too comes from a lack of self, a lack of, there's a certain insecurity in there that maybe you don't feel like you deserve somebody that can treat you right or that can reciprocate that love or that affection. So you try to like give it to everyone or give it to someone. And if it doesn't come in return, you feel like, you're not enough. And it just continually like leads down a negative spiral. So I
Well,
wonder if there's a connection there.
my number. next time you
Yeah,
talk to him.
you said that guy.
Yeah, give me that guy's number. But
For
what
real.
I will tell you about that in particular, there's a number of sayings. You can't pour from an empty cup,
Right.
um, and so forth. But really, what it boils down to is you cannot give other people something that you don't have.
Mm,
You don't have a love for yourself, not an overestimated view of yourself. If you
right.
don't love who you are as a person, you don't know what it feels like to be loved by somebody else. So that
Mm,
man that you spoke about, he was in the way that men do, giving things.
yeah.
He was providing. He was providing money, resources, time, and attention to someone who was not reciprocating, and that's because he doesn't give it to himself.
Right.
It never dawned on him even once that what he was doing was wrong.
Mm,
That's because he didn't have enough love and respect and admiration for himself to set a boundary after the first trip, right? Or the first gift
mm-hmm.
when there was nothing he was getting in return,
Mm-hmm.
right? My man can't get a hug.
Dude, it's
That's,
it's that bad.
that's crazy to me. And I
It's
feel really
wild.
bad for him. I feel bad for him because there is something inside of him that is saying, well, if I just do this one more thing,
Yeah.
he love me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And listen, I don't take any of the onus off of her either
Oh yeah.
because she was breadcrumbing him somehow,
Yep.
right? She was manipulating him somehow, keep getting what she was getting.
Mm-hmm.
She knew what was going on.
Right.
Women are like have 3 times more ability to understand social cues than men in general,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They can walk into a room and look around and know what everybody's thinking, right? That's a skill that all women have. So she knew
Right.
what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know. That was the
No
problem,
idea. Mm-hmm.
right? And that comes from a lack of self-respect, boundaries, and an amount of love that would say, you know what, this is disrespectful, and I'm not doing it anymore.
Mm.
Right? And to your point, that's simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's sad, man. And I've seen that whole thing. I mean, I hope they're not together at this point. I don't think they're talking anymore. For his sake, I hope not.
I need intervention, man. Might have to
Yeah, for real.
at first send him this podcast.
Yeah, honestly, to give him some value. Like, hey, man, we were thinking about you. But, but,
Absolutely.
I think that there's definitely an interesting way to go about expressing boundaries because I think that a lot of like, there's a lot of nuance to it, right? There's not like, oh, you're gonna not go to the clubs, you're gonna not gonna wear that outfit, blah blah blah, and like they're screaming at a girl. I don't think that's ever the way to communicate, especially with a woman. Like she's just not gonna listen to you. Now, there are some content creators. I'm sure you probably know who some of them are, in the red pill space that say, oh, like put the like you got to say exactly this thing and like this she's going to listen to you, otherwise you got to start talking to other women or blah blah blah, all this stuff, right? I'm sure you probably have seen that stuff out there. um what is your way to communicate a solid boundary with a woman that is firm but is also very controlled, so you're not like you're letting go of what you believe in?
Well, let me say this first. I haven't yelled at a girl since high school. That was a billion years ago,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Didn't work then, and it's not going to work now, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I do not advocate for any emotional outburst.
Yep.
Um, that is not masculine.
No.
That is not what a noble, respectable man will ever do.
Mm-hmm.
So answer this question for me. What is the currency that women trade in daily?
Currency they trade in. I would say time
Close. It's attention,
or attention. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
right? So were someone I date or would be dating would do something that I did not like or that I do not accept as a boundary of mine, I would take my attention away.
Mm,
Does that mean that I would ghost her or stop talking to her? No.
mm,
But if we are on a pattern of communication consistently, and then she does something that is against my personal boundaries, I will take my attention away.
mm.
And again, what I just mentioned is very true. Women understand what's going on socially. So
Right.
she will know.
Right.
She will be able to see that line of demarcation where something happened and my attention lessened.
Mm-hmm.
If a girl really likes you, one of two things is going to happen. She's going to ask you what's wrong, which at that point, you can say, hey, listen, um, everything's cool. I'm not mad. However, this thing happened. And to be honest with you, I did not appreciate it. And I don't date girls who do X, Y, and Z. The other thing that will happen is that she already knows what happened. And if she really likes you, she will just come back and apologize. And then
Mm-hmm.
you go right back to what it was before.
Mm.
So a quote that I often use is, you will not get boyfriend attention without girlfriend affection. Period.
Wow.
Right?
I'm gonna
And
steal that one.
please do, please do. And the thing about it is, if you take your attention away, it also does one other unintended thing. If she doesn't like you, she's not going to talk to you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just move on,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So none of that includes an emotional outburst where you're yelling at someone, where you are disrespecting someone, where you are swearing at someone, um, or when you are emotional to the point where perhaps she is even afraid of
Mm.
you. That is not respectable. That is not noble. That is not what a man does.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may say, well, a man wouldn't start to ignore someone. You're not really ignoring anyone.
Yeah.
You're setting a boundary because you understand the currency that women trade in. When a woman loves you, she wants to be up your behind all day, every day.
24/7. Mm-hmm.
Get them off your phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take that away because that's what she values. If you text her
Mm-hmm.
5 times a day, text her twice. If you call her every night, call her every other. She'll
Mm-hmm.
get the picture. And if she really likes you, she's going to want to fix it. And that's when you can have an adult conversation
Mm-hmm.
regarding the boundary that you felt was crossed.
Mm-hmm.
How that conversation goes, it's up to the girl. Because you may have that conversation. She may say, well, I don't think I did anything wrong, yada, yada, yada. Well, then maybe you need to move on. But
Yeah.
you do it amicably
Mm-hmm.
because the entire interaction has been respectful.
Mm.
What man is respected that doesn't give respect?
Yep.
There isn't.
That's
There
so
isn't.
true.
Right. So that's that's how I look at setting boundaries. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
always look at it that way. However, um, from experience, from the experience of my clients, friends, and so forth, that's what I believe you should
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very well said, man. And I know that there's going to be some people that think, oh man, that's like playing games. You're ignoring her. You're doing this and you do that. I think at one point when I didn't know this stuff, that's probably what I would have said too.
do. Sure.
But now that I kind of know what I know about men, about women, about just dynamics of people in general, that is a good way to do it because I mean it's also human nature too to like always be curious. If you know somebody really well and you like them and you're always around them, all of a sudden if you're hanging out and they just go quiet or they don't talk to you as much, their natural tendencies to be like, okay, something's wrong. What's going on here? If they're at least baseline socially aware, they'd be like, hey, something wrong? And a woman, like, she knows.
That's why I don't necessarily advocate ghosting.
Yeah, exactly.
That is playing games.
Right.
You just be a little bit more quiet than normal.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, it could actually be a situation where something happens in public
Mm. Even
And
worse.
you just stop talking.
Yep.
Why are you so quiet? Well, I didn't really appreciate what you did. You violated this, and I don't really appreciate that.
Hmm.
You handled it in the moment,
Yeah.
right? All you have to do is stop talking. That's it. Because what do girls like to do? Talk.
Hmm.
That's what they do. So you're not you're
Yep.
actually you're, and on a macro level, um, this may sound a little crazy, but I do believe this. I believe that you are actually giving your girl what she actually wants.
Yeah.
She wants to know that she can't just roll over you. She
That's
wants to know that
true.
you have boundaries
Yeah.
and you will enforce them, right?
Hmm.
Women want a strong, masculine leader,
Right.
right? So let's say you didn't do that. Let's say something happened in public that you were not happy with. You didn't say anything, you just rolled with the punches,
Yeah.
and then you explode later on.
Hmm.
That's not what she wants.
Not at all.
And as a man, that's not what you should do, right? So that is, I think that kind of covers the way that I view boundary setting. Handle it in the moment if you can. If you can't, no boyfriend attention without girlfriend affection.
That's so true. I love that saying. That's actually like super, super accurate. Cause I think like um I had a thought and I just lost it.
It'll come back. Always does.
Dude, it always happens, man. Especially when it's about to be like a really like profound thing that I'm about to say.
You do it live, as they say. Is it about boyfriend attention, girlfriend affection?
It was yeah, it was about what we just talked about, like with the boundary setting. And
Okay.
here's what it was. So it comes back to, like you said, about setting boundaries, being firm, and like women are looking for this. I fully agree with that because the thing is like the whole nice guy thing gets tossed around too. Like, oh, just be a nice guy, blah, blah, blah. And then that's what you ask women. They tell you, I want a nice guy. I want a guy who treats me right, blah, blah, blah. You ask guy, oh, just be a jerk. Like treat her like shit. Don't pay attention to her, ignore her, blah, blah, blah. It's like both of those are wrong, honestly, in my opinion. Because I think you need both. Like you need to be that guy that can listen to her. You need to be that guy that can treat her well, that can make her feel special. But you also need to be the guy who's like, hey, if there's any problems or you disrespect me in any way, or there's something that happens that needs taken care of, like I'm gonna need to take care of that. And like you need to be that guy too. And I've said like a girl wants to see your heart, like she wants to see that you're a good person, but she wants to see your balls first, like first and foremost, and not like literally, but figuratively.
No, it's very true, man. I literally could not agree with you more. And the fundamental psychology behind that is if you can't stand up to her,
Yeah.
how are you going to stand up for her in the
Hmm.
world?
Right.
Whether that's men, whether that's, you know, some out of pocket boss that she may have at work, a
Hmm.
disrespectful family member, somebody breaking in the house. It, she has she has no foundation that has been laid to prove to her that you can do that if you
Hmm.
can't even stand up.
Yeah.
Test that every woman runs.
Hmm.
Oftentimes they don't even know they're doing it,
Hmm.
right? Um, and that's why it is important to be able to put the foot down.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean being disrespectful. Doesn't mean being rude. Doesn't mean yelling and screaming. Definitely doesn't mean getting physical in any way with any woman ever.
Hmm.
Sometimes you got to put your foot down.
Yeah.
Plain,
Hmm.
and
That's
then
very
you'll know
true.
right there whether or not she's a quality woman for you. Because if she doesn't respect you putting your foot down, that means she doesn't respect you.
Mm.
And women cannot love you if they respect you first.
100%. Here's an interesting perspective that I honestly just thought of as you said that. So like women do tests and they all of them do, and they do it in their own way. And they might not look the same for every girl, but every girl does They test for your strength. They test for your confidence. Like, is he that guy that he says he is? And I think what's interesting is, so that's the test for you. But when you respond and how you interpret that test, whether you set a boundary, whether you freak out, whether you do whatever, that's the second test. So once you have solid in that, like if you set a boundary and you tell her, hey, look, I'm not cool with this. Let's not go down this road, whatever. Then that's her test. How does she respond to that? Because that is going to give you a foresight of like, oh, who is this girl?
Guess what? The first time you set the boundary, be prepared for the second time she steps over it. Because it's coming again.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, see if you are who you say you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they want you to be consistent too.
Right. Right.
And that goes back to being a man and being on your purpose. If you're on your purpose, you have to be consistent. You have to learn how to be a man of your word. You have to learn to set goals and achieve them. You have to learn to work through difficulties. When you do that, some little test from your girlfriend, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And then that proves to her that you are the man that you claim to be, because there are a lot of guys out there who claim to be one thing, but they show nothing,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And those tests from their girl are exactly what they use to determine that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to stop, right?
Right.
I think a lot of men get this sense that if they pass one test, that's
Yeah,
it.
they're home free.
That's not the case. You might be a green belt today, man, but you better go get your black belt, your third degree black belt, and become a ninja, depending on the girl, because the
Mm-hmm.
tests are going to keep coming.
Yep.
What? That's the burden of being a man. Don't be
Sure.
mad about it. Be
Mm-hmm.
better, right?
Yeah.
That's the way that I look at
Yeah. I very much agree with that. And I think tying this into like what we talked about too, like the testing, that comes with a level of like, okay, how much work did you do on yourself to handle those kind of tests, to handle it's like sales. There's going to be objections. There's going to be things that happen that you didn't plan for. How do you handle that in the moment? Are you going to like lose your cool? You're going to get ungrounded, or are you going to say, okay, here's how I'm going to handle this? Um, it's interesting because man, it happened again. I had another thought and I was gonna go. I was gonna go somewhere with this and
it.
then I lost it.
It reminds me though of the philosophy of Stoicism.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I keep talking about philosophy. I'm not even really a philosopher. I like a philosophy guy. But, it just kind of fits with all of this, man. I think
Yeah.
being stoic
Yep.
is so important for men, to be able to be in a volatile emotional situation, no matter the
Hmm.
situation,
Yep.
and to divorce yourself from that emotion to make a logical, best bet decision.
Hmm.
And to your point, you don't learn that early in life. You have to go through things.
Yeah.
You have to.
Hmm.
It's like if you watch a tremendous salesperson and they get 5 or 6 no's from a customer, but they keep going and they're skillful and they're bringing in points that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Y'all are selling the same product, right?
Hmm.
And then they eventually get the sale, and you're like, how did you do that? It's because they had 1,000 no's before that.
Right. Right.
So they can take those blows, if you will, and it doesn't knock them off their course or their purpose of getting the sale.
Hmm.
That's how life is. That's how relationships are too.
Yeah.
Because the higher quality, and here's the other thing that I think guys don't really understand: the higher quality the woman, the more tests you're going to receive.
Absolutely.
So you better be ready.
Hmm.
Better be ready, fellas. You know.
Yeah. That kind of ties into one of the things that I've heard in the content space of guys who like specifically red pill guys will say this like, oh, don't mess with nines and tens because they'll be a headache to deal with, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, then why would you limit yourself because it's quote unquote difficult, or maybe you don't know how to handle a woman's test? And I say that lightly because I don't mean handle a woman like some girls say, oh, he's got to handle me, blah blah blah. No, I mean like you're equipped to be okay for that. Yeah. Yeah. So like how would you, I guess what would your response be to that? Because it sounds like kind of a almost a limiting mindset or a mindset that's like kind of based in fear, to be honest.
Yeah, I think your last point there is valid. I think that men in general are afraid of beautiful women.
That's
So
true.
their cop out is, oh, they're difficult. They're no more difficult than any other woman.
Mm,
They're really not. The difference between a 9 or a 10 and a 6 or a 7 is the attention that they receive from other men, which typically will give them a bit of an inflated sense of self.
sure.
It's earned because of their beauty.
Hmm.
But if you've ever talked to a 9 or 10, I compare them to celebrities, right?
Yeah, in a way.
I've talked to a few celebrities in my time, right? You know what they really want? To be treated like a regular person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly how beautiful women feel.
Hmm.
Nobody is real with them ever. Nobody tells them no ever.
So true.
Nobody talks to them like they're an actual human being ever.
Hmm.
So guess what? That's all you have to do. They're not difficult. They're not.
Yep.
And that does not come from a place of arrogance or what. I'm not even saying I've ever been with a 9 or a 10 ever. What I'm saying is I understand their experience in life, which is I am beautiful, therefore I get what I want when I want it, and nobody cares about anything else other than what I look like.
Yeah.
I remember asking celebrities before, even like low key celebrities. I remember talking to somebody that was on like the real world or
Hmm.
road rules stuff,
Yeah.
and just absolutely beautiful. I just asked her a regular question, and her eyes got this big. We talked for 15 or 20 minutes. I dapped her up and walked off. Just want to have a regular conversation,
Hmm.
right? Because people don't treat celebrities like they're even human beings. So
No.
going back to the red pill space of 9s and 10s or 50, yeah, they are. If you don't understand, if you don't have empathy for their experience in life of being approached by 20 guys a day, catcalling, or trying to get their number, or lying about how much money they make, or talking about their car outside, whatever, that's not a regular experience for
Mm.
anybody, right? So I don't think they're more difficult. I think they need to be treated more like regular people, and that is what they respond to. That doesn't mean they're not going to test you. That doesn't mean it won't be more difficult for you to date a 9 or a 10 because that comes with its own challenges, right?
Yeah.
But I don't believe on a fundamental level that they are more difficult or that you should stay away from someone that you view as a 10 simply because you view them as a 10. What do you view yourself as? You're going
Right.
after a 10, you better think you a 12.
Yeah. Exactly.
That'll help, right?
Hmm.
That'll surely help because
Yeah.
statistics typically say that you attract 2 points less than what you are. So you can get a 10 if you think you're a 12. You can get
True.
a 9 if you think you're an 11. And for men, that comes with work. So put
Yep.
in the work.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree, man. I think it's the
Fantastic
mis
question, Mark. That was a great question.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's one that needs answered because there's a lot of guys that are maybe afraid to like talk to these like really really beautiful like stunning women because they're like ah well she's probably stuck up or she's probably this and that. It's like you just make these assumptions and you don't even know the girl. You can say one word to her yet.
Oh,
And
she looks mean. You know why she
yeah,
looks mean?
exactly.
Because idiots are coming up to her all day. So her mean face is a defense mechanism to keep weirdos away.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you're not a weirdo and you engage in a regular conversation, it
Hmm.
goes away in 30 seconds,
Yeah.
right? It's really what it boils down to.
Legit. I've had experiences like that too, where I was talking to like I don't know if I'd consider them nines or tens. I don't know what anybody would really consider a 9 or a 10. But to me, she was like gorgeous, like stunning, really good looking girl. And I had the same kind of mentality. Even this was a while ago, like way back, like I was probably in college. In my mind, I'm thinking, man, she's so hot. Like she probably gets hit on all the time. I'm gonna sound weird if I say something to her or whatever. But the one day she was in the gym and she was sitting next to me, so I was like, screw it, let me just talk to her. I was like, there's no other excuse for me to not say something. So I walked up to her and said, hey, are you busy right now? Like I saw you sitting here. I wanted to sit down. Is that okay? And just approach her like a human being, was socially aware, had a conversation, and she ended up being cool as hell, like super chill, down to earth, like really good girl. Now, granted, didn't work, but at the time, I was thinking to myself, wow, like she's a normal girl, just like every other girl. She just happens to be prettier than most of them. So it's like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not rocket science. You just have to kind of get over that. It's like the mystique of a hot girl. You start thinking and fantasizing, oh my gosh, she's probably XYZ. She has all these numbers and all these options. She don't want to pay attention to me. It's like, dude, if you're the best option, I mean, where's she gonna go?
That's right. And then, much deeper point. I very rarely talk, but we mentioned earlier that I mentioned earlier the problem is social media and pornography.
Hmm.
One of the main reasons that men can't talk to nines and tens is because
Right, right.
the only time they interact with nines and tens
Mm,
is through pornography.
right.
You break down what pornography actually is. It is the culmination of a pre-existing relationship. So you're watching the end result, as disgusting and unnatural as it is,
Hmm.
but you miss all the stuff that gets up to that point.
So
Because
true.
typically, when people are engaging in that behavior, they're in a relationship.
Hmm.
So when a man sees a 10, he skips all this
Yeah,
and he goes to the last pornography video he watched,
that's
where
very
he's
true.
idolizing someone who he doesn't know on a screen that he'll never talk to. So he looks at this now 10 at the gym and doesn't know how to interact in this section of life at all. He's just thinking about how do I do what I just watched on my
Yeah,
screen? What kind of
really
conversation
true.
do you think that's going to be?
Hmm.
Not a good one.
Mm.
He's literally looking at her as an object.
So
And
true.
guess what, fellas? She's not an object. She's a human being. So you need to treat her as such.
Hmm.
And that, in a nutshell, is how you can get the opportunity to talk to anyone.
Hmm.
If you fumble after that's on you, right? But but
Right.
again, in general, understanding who you are as a person, right? Even the way that you just explained that you approached that girl,
Hmm.
right? You're like, hey, I saw you over here. I didn't want to bother you, but is it okay if I sit down? Why? Because the worst thing for you to do is to disturb somebody's peace.
Yeah, it's true.
You allowed her to continue her peaceful environment. You added to that, and that's why she didn't cuss you out or walk away, right?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
were being who you are, and that's why it's important to understand who you are as a man, so that you can engage in a way that is congruent to who you are, and then you treat people in an empathetic way because you understand what their day-to-day experience probably is,
Mm,
right? That's how you build any relationship, including one with women.
definitely. Yeah, I agree 100%. And there's so many things we could branch off with what you just said. I think like empathy is a big one that I'm picking up on, and to me, that's always been a really great way to start any relationship. I mean, just kind of trying to understand like another person's point of view or experience and just listening, like straight up, like actually listening and hearing them out and giving a damn what they say. Because most people, what do they do these days? I mean, they hear somebody or they listen with the intention to just say something next or just respond. They don't actually try to hear what the person's saying. So the very, very underutilized skill set, I think, especially men don't talk about it.
I agree, and I don't know if you know this, actually, three different types of
Mm,
people, depending on who you are as a person. then B, where you are in a relationship, say with me, you have to employ one of the three. So first is cognitive empathy,
Mm,
where you can understand how somebody might be feeling. Then you have emotional empathy. That means that you logically understand what they're going through, and then you can feel it. It's
mm,
like their feelings are inside of you,
yeah.
right? Then you have compassionate empathy, which is you understand it, feel it, and that motivates you to action to help them or help people, right?
Hmm.
So depending on where you are in a relationship with a person, that's going to determine which empathy should be employed. And
Mm,
once again, if you don't know who you are,
yeah.
you won't know how to do that in any way, shape, or form, right?
Hmm.
Especially with compassionate empathy, it moves you to action. If you don't know who you are, your empathy is going to move you to an action that you shouldn't be doing, like taking
Yep.
somebody to Chicago or Cleveland or wherever your boy was taking that girl up,
All over the
and
place.
getting no reciprocation, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, so again, even empathy goes back to understanding who you are.
Mm. That's a really great tie-in right there. And that's true. Like you can't be empathetic with anybody until you first kind of like understand who you are and build that reflection, that awareness, that relationship with yourself. And I mean, that's honestly like full circle, kind of that's where everything really stems from what we're talking about today. So yeah, man, I think I could talk about this for another 2 hours, honestly, with you. I think we just kind of we go back and forth forever. Um, but I think that's a perfect segue to kind of wrap things up. What do you think about that?
It's been just another good conversation between homies.
Yeah, 100%.
For the rest of this conversation will happen at dinner sometime soon.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, man, it's been great. I would actually love to come back.
Yeah,
Um, the podcast if people want it, answer some more questions, and
sure.
go from there. Man, I always enjoy these conversations.
Yeah, man. Likewise. I'd love to have you back. I think we could definitely do one of these again, maybe end of the month, beginning of next month or something like that, or maybe even
Let me know.
sooner. Yeah,
Let me know. I'll be back as soon as you want me, or if you want me to come back. Man, I'm definitely down.
for sure. Yeah, man. I think it was an insightful podcast that we had. There's like, man, we talked about so much really valuable, just useful information that guys are going to want to go back and do this. I say this so many times, but I really do mean this. Like, rewatch this a few times because there's going to be things you missed. Take some notes, start applying this stuff into your life because it will literally change your life and your perception of yourself and what you're trying to do. So, yeah, man, I just want to say I appreciate you hopping on, bro. I appreciate you being open, being honest, and having an awesome dialogue with me. And yeah, man. Is there anything you wanted to say to kind of close things out?
Um, listen, man, I think that there are so many things that men are dealing with
Mm,
when it comes to relationships. I think the podcast is extremely important. And I would encourage all the men that watch this podcast to think about the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat.
mm,
A thermometer is going to read out the temperature of an environment.
mm,
Thermostat is used to adjust the temperature in some room or some environment, right? So you may have to adjust your dating and relationship thermostat
mm.
to the temperature that you want, which is a good relationship. And Tino and myself, we have the tools to help guys do that. But not just men, people that are in relationships, folks that are coming out of divorce, and so forth, to really understand what their temperature is so that they can make the adjustments to get into the type of relationships that I believe everybody wants to have, and in most cases deserve to have. So I look forward to being back again, and maybe bringing on some clients or whatever we can do, man. I'm
Yeah.
down for everything. So just and guys, stop sleeping, man. Stop. No
Yep.
boyfriend attention without girlfriend affection.
Man, I'm gonna make that into a shirt or something. That's golden. That's great.
Yeah, but I love to see the eyes at the gym when you walk in with that.
For real.
I love
Oh my gosh, that's a good one. But yeah, guys, if you want to see more of his content, I'll leave the links down below. You know where to
it.
find my stuff. Definitely check out next time I get another guest. I love to have these at least every other week or every week. So yeah, definitely check in the next time I get a guest on. You know it's coming. And make sure you subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you watch this whole thing, I appreciate you. At least give me a thumbs up. That's the very least that you could do. Um, but we're gonna get going because we got some stuff to finish up, and we'll see you next time. Deuces.